President, the last 6 months have been among our country's most trying and painful in recent history. Nearly 160,000 Americans have lost their lives. That's more than enough people to fill Seattle's CenturyLink Stadium twice. 4.7 million Americans have been infected. Everywhere, nationwide, we see the economic consequences of this virus. Millions of people losing their jobs and their health care. Millions more at risk of losing their homes. Food lines a mile long. And all of this as our country begins long overdue work to grapple not just with police brutality against Black people and communities of color, but also with the racial injustice embedded in our laws and policies, which has caused COVID-19 to have vastly disproportionate impacts on those very same communities. Madam President, since my home state of Washington was hit hard early back in February, I've been ringing alarm bells every day, day in and day out, about the need for the Trump administration and this Republican-controlled Senate to act with urgency, to listen to public health experts, to follow the science, and put the health and safety of workers and families above any political consideration. So you can imagine my frustration that for months, as Democrats urged Republicans to work with us on additional relief and passed legislation to do just that in the House, Republicans have refused. As we got closer and closer to laid-off workers seeing dramatic cuts in unemployment benefits, as we got closer to the expiration of the eviction moratorium, we heard the Senate Republican leader was, quote, in favor of states just going bankrupt. That was April. We heard that Senate Republicans didn't feel any urgency to act. That was May. And now it's August. And with this virus still raging, Senate Republican leaders finally produced a so-called relief package that actually grants corporations a get-out-of-jail-free card if their employees or customers get sick. It guts jobless benefits. It rolls back critical civil rights protections for workers, including communities of color, LGBTQIA+ people, women, older Americans, and people with disabilities. It's a package that fails to keep our child care sector stabilized for more than a month, to provide the significant funding we need to finally make testing and contact tracing fast, free, and everywhere, to require the type of end-to-end comprehensive plan that we need to make sure safe, effective vaccines are cost-free and widely available. And their package will not help the millions who've lost health insurance coverage during this crisis or help people suffering from the virus afford treatment. It does nothing to address the disproportionate impact of this virus on Black, Latinx, tribal communities, and other communities of color. And it provides zero relief for state, local, and tribal governments, which is an absolute necessity for my state and so many others. And if that's not enough, Madam President, one of the centerpieces of this bill is a demand tweeted out by the President of the United States, which I, as a former preschool teacher and a mom and a grandmother, find especially insidious and harmful. This is the Republican policy to try to force schools to reopen for in-person learning, regardless of what the public health experts recommend. This policy is a lose-lose-lose. Threatens the health and safety of students and families, educators, and communities. It would in particular pressure high-needs school districts to reopen in person despite the risk, and it could spread this virus further and longer. Many school districts are already rejecting that policy and planning for distance learning this fall for every student. Because let me be clear, no student's education, regardless of where it takes place, should falter because the president wants to pretend this virus has gone away, or because Republicans in the Senate are unwilling to stand up to him. If a school cannot safely reopen in person, they need the resources to ensure that every student and educator has access to a computer, to the internet, and to other equipment necessary to learn outside of a traditional classroom. So what we need to do is pass the Coronavirus Child Care and Education Relief Act, which provides K-12 schools with $175 billion to make sure schools can continue to educate students in whatever way is safest. It makes additional investments in stabilizing our child care and higher education systems, which are facing financial crisis. And it helps ensure students of all ages who are disproportionately impacted by this virus are supported through all that they are facing. I know there are some who say the investments we are proposing are too much. Well, what I'd say to them, as the former chair of this budget committee in the Senate, is budgets are a statement of our values and our priorities. And I believe that one of our top priorities at all times, but especially in a pandemic, should be making sure that students and families and educators do not have to choose between safety and quality public education. Madam President, the parents and families I'm hearing from are under such immense pressure right now. My question to Republican leaders is why, when things are already so hard, are you determined to make them harder for people who are already struggling so much? Madam President, this question is personal for me for a lot of reasons. One of which is because when I was growing up, my family fell on hard times. My dad, who was a World War II veteran, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and he couldn't work any longer. That meant that my mom, who had stayed home to raise our family, had to take care of him while also working to support our family. Her job didn't pay enough to support me and my 6 brothers and sisters or cover the growing medical bills. For several months, we had to rely on food stamps. And then my mom got federal support to go back to school, and she got a better job. My brothers and sisters and I got grants and student loans to go to college. The point is, I know things could have gone a far different way for us had the government just said, sorry, you're on your own. Well, right now, families across the country have fallen on incredibly hard times. They are worried and scared because so far, you're on your own is largely what this Republican-controlled Senate and administration have told them. Madam President, we owe every worker and family, including immigrant families, so many of whom are on the front lines of this fight, relief that reflects the depth of this crisis and helps them get back on their feet, just like mine was able to. Relief to help kids learn safely and keep families in their homes with food on the table until we can get through this. Relief that helps us come back stronger as a nation. It is not too much to ask. In fact, it is what we're supposed to be here to do. And it is what I and Democrats are going to keep fighting for. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.